Okay, guys, here it is. Finally, after the long wait. Sorry, I was doing NWR Origins, and it was so much work, and I got sidetracked. But anyway, so 2015 marked the 70th anniversary of the Railway series, so it makes sense that they would make a special to commemorate it. The special is called The Adventure Begins, and every fan goes wild about it. So what do I think of it? You probably predicted it. It is the best Thomas special of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. There's actually no point in really summarizing it, since it's basically a retelling of Edward and Gordon, Thomas's train, Thomas and the trucks, and Thomas and the breakdown train. Oh, and sad story of Henry if you count flashbacks. But it also shows how Thomas came to Sodor, which I've actually been waiting for since I was born to see. Okay, I know Thomas arrived before the others did in World War One, hence that's why he has the number one, and that's why I made him come first in NWR Origins. But from the Railway series perspective, it actually one would think that Thomas came later, because he wasn't in the three railway engines. I know I thought Edward was first when I was a little kid, so here I don't care about it at all. My only problem is that James was new and Thomas in the breakdown train, and so I would have thought he'd come after Thomas, but he was there before that episode many times in the TV series, though likely not intentional, so I'll give that some slack. I am so pleased that they used his black livery. He looks wonderful. And they also made it a TV series style look. It wasn't just a copy off the Railway series. They added the stripes and his number. So I really applaud them for that. Again, I know he wasn't black in season 1, but back then they probably had budget issues, and so I also don't care about that. We also see 3 new characters, although the last one only has like a 10-second appearance at the end. The Cranes are called Jerome and Judy, whom are both really funny. Also, I like how they gave the Cranes personalities. As a kid, I always wondered whether they were alive or not, seeing Cranes like Cranky and Rocky in the later seasons. Glyn the Coffee Pot's engine, well, I think he had absolutely no point in this special at all. Well, it's actually not that. It's just that we saw lots of merchandise for Glyn, like Trackmaster, so I would have thought he had a fairly large role in the special. But he didn't even move. He was mentioned once, then made a 10-second appearance at the end. His design is really cool, and I wanted to see more of him. In fact, it's funny because, Wallace from NWR Origins was supposed to be a Coffee Pot's engine. But, I couldn't find the model. But anyway, but even Bertram had a bigger impact than Glyn. We also see other aspects that haven't been told before, like how Thomas met Annie and Clarabelle and how the engines thought he would have been a big, strong engine. The Annie and Clarabelle introduction was done perfectly, in my opinion. Rather than have them be wimpy or grumbling like they usually did, they're really sweet, and I found it interesting how they were, how do I describe it? They were being Thomas's mentor rather than the other way around. It's not like, hey, Thomas, go slower. They're kind of teaching him. I thought that was really nice. And I also love how the classic relationship of the 5 engines was revisited. It was handled brilliantly, in my opinion. Edward is the kind engine who has sympathy for Thomas. Gordon is the arrogant, pompous turd. James is all cocky, yet eager to work, and Henry, well, I'll get to him later. But anyway, the banter between the 5 was fantastic. There's no ignorant Percy getting in the way, or stuff about specials. I think you probably already know my favorite part of the special, the classic music. Not counting that Thomas theme we heard in Percy and the Calliope, this is really the first time we have ever heard any of Donald and Campbell's music since 2004. What made it even better is that I didn't know about it until I was watching the special. I literally kept going back and wondering if I had actually heard what I thought I heard. And yes, it was Edward's theme. Oh my god, it's classic Thomas! Yeah, you get the deal. Totally fanboying. But rather than just having the old 80s synths again, they rearranged them to fit the modern instruments, and it was stunning. They mixed them into the new style music. I probably have to say I like Thomas's theme best, though Edward is quite nice as well. And to add to that, they had the songs Really Useful Engine and Troublesome Trucks. That's actually a very unique combination I did not expect. Um, as for the songs themselves, well, they're okay. I mean, the singing's not great, and neither is the music, but, they're watchable, and it's great to have them again. And, I wish they would have had more, like, Thomas Anthem, but oh well. I'll talk about the negatives of this special now. Now, granted, there aren't many, but there is one thing that really pissed me off, and that is basically how they used Henry. Okay, first of all, what the hell is he doing in his new shape? Now, before you start calling me an overcritical turd, hear my explanation. Normally, something like this wouldn't bug me, because you can't expect them to get everything right. But here's the thing. James being black was wrong, as he obviously wasn't black in Thomas and the Breakdown Train. However, that aspect didn't have a huge role in the story, so I can accept minor changes. Henry in his old shape, on the other hand, was a main focus of several episodes. It's a major part of his history, and writing that out would be like saying Darth Vader was never burnt by the lava. Could you imagine Darth Vader without the helmet and the suit? I mean, that's what this is like. In Blue Mountain Mystery, it wasn't a big deal because it was just a flashback. Here, you basically write out a defining point of Henry's character. I'm not someone who generally bitches about continuity, but I think this one is one that I don't think is acceptable. The second aspect, it's just his general persona. Now, I know Henry is a difficult character because his personality wasn't always established. He went from, being afraid of rain to going on strike because of laziness and so forth. I always saw Henry as a troubled character. He may not have had a clear personality, but he was very relatable. You did generally feel bad for him in Season 1, and, that's why he is my favorite character. See the Q&A for more info on that, but going back to the sad story of Henry, he was afraid of the rain, but it was more of an annoyance rather than a fear. How do I describe this? He was afraid of, getting wet, but, more in an arrogant way, like, like you don't want to walk through mud because it'll get your shoes dirty, like that. You're not necessarily afraid of mud, you're just, you just don't want to get messed up. In The Adventure Begins, they treat it like Henry has a serious phobia of water. I was actually cringing. He was such a scaredy cat over the dumbest thing. If you watch the sad story of Henry, you'll notice that before he gets bricked up, Henry has either an angry or an annoyed face. Not once does he have a scared face or a sad face. Now, okay, what am I gonna say? Now, with Henry's personality, I don't mind them, giving him a new personality. I don't mind making him, a bit timid and shy and all that, but you can't have it where someone's, got an extreme phobia of something. How do I describe this? You can't have someone be, extremely afraid of something as simple as water. And, I can understand him being afraid of water, but, but also, at the end of this, Edward Gordon and Henry, it was established that he wouldn't do that again, but in the special, he refuses to come out of a shed because he's, it's raining, and, I do like, Thomas teaching him that it's, nothing to worry about, but I don't know. So yeah, Henry's personality, that was really bad in my opinion. It's not as bad as, say, some of the newer episodes, but, yeah. Henry is timid, and he does get scared, but, my god, he's not a wimp or anything. Okay, so, I had another problem, and this one isn't very major. I just thought I'd point it out. I didn't like particularly how Thomas and Gordon was handled. Because in the TV series, Thomas deserved it. It was never said, how much time passed, when Thomas was, how do I describe it? It was never said, how many times Thomas peeped at Gordon, and, I always got the impression it was constantly, ever since Thomas arrived, so, it makes sense Gordon would want to, teach him a lesson, and I think Thomas did deserve it. But in The Avenger Begins, Thomas just does it once, and that's kind of being a jerk. Thomas was just having fun once, and Gordon puts him through all this trauma. I mean, I thought that was a bit too harsh in my opinion, but again, not a major issue. And yeah, and I guess my third issue would be how Glynn was used, but that's very minor. I just wish I could have seen more of him. So yeah, also this isn't necessarily an issue, but why do they have the UK voice for Sir Topham Hatt? I thought that was just weird. Like, I think they should have stuck with the US voice because, it's just awkward, I think. So yeah, those are really my only problems with the special. Everything else I think was done superbly. I was very pleased with this special, and so yeah, I definitely give it. I'm not sure. I definitely give it an A plus. Actually, I think the positives overweigh the negatives. So yeah, I'll be back again soon with the final review, which will be Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. Hopefully, I'll get that up soon.